Hello, I'm Bob Pierce, author, writer, illustrator, and all the rest of that stuff that we told you about in previous videos. And welcome to the studio, although obviously this is not my studio. This particular segment, we're going to be talking about the inspirations for people, places, and things in your books. Particularly in this video, we'll be talking about places and things. We'll do people in another one coming up later. Where do ideas come from? That's really kind of the crux of it, because a lot of times we get great ideas for books and have no idea where to take them. You know, we know how it's going to begin, maybe. We definitely know how it's going to end. And maybe we know a little bit about what's going to happen in between. But there are various things that happen throughout the course of the story that we need to flesh out. And that's where finding ideas out there in the world come in handy. There's a story behind everything, every place, and every face that you encounter. We're going to look at a bunch of those just to kind of give you a sense of how you want to be so observant as you go out into the world. I mean, every day, you know, going to work, your commute, going to a local restaurant, going wherever you go, doing whatever you do, you're constantly surrounded by inspiration. You may not even know it. So we're going to kind of give you an idea of what to look for while you're out there. And things, we're going to take a look at some of those, and we're going to take a look at places just like this one. Dark stone, just screams creepy, doesn't it? An old Gothic church here in New England. It could be anywhere. It could be in Europe, it could be in Eastern Europe, it could be in Romania, it could be in Moscow, it could be anywhere, and it could be the model for any one of a number of stories that you might have in mind. This is the kind of thing you want to bank in your memory and maybe even snap a few pictures just so that you can keep it in mind. It appears in a few of my books, most notably in Hunting Lilith, where Jack and David have a clandestine meeting here in the middle of the night. And it's the perfect location for something you don't want anyone to see you doing. A hand-carved sculpture of a ball player, a self-portrait by the artist. And your characters can meet at the local diner for all kinds of, well, fun and nefarious reasons. A pocket watch and chain, always fodder for mystery and adventure. But what if that pocket watch belonged to a Russian sailor? Abandoned buildings like this one are just full of story ideas. It may have serviced Model Ts and Model As back in the day. It might have been the one and only garage for miles around. It took care of anything and everything. Might have even been somewhat of a blacksmith shop back in those days. Parts are so hard to come by, they probably had to make a lot of them. In later years, maybe it became a rod shop. Maybe this is where they built dragsters to go out and race at the Nationals. You never know, from a sleepy little town like this, something like that might come. But also remember too, abandoned little places like this can have all kinds of histories. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre took place in a garage not much different than this one. Is it me, or do trains just inspire intrigue and mystery? The stone sculpture of a distinguished old man. He's already inspired one character in one of my books. Could be the inspiration for any number of others. This old building is, well, not really too sure what it is. But boy, it has a lot of potential for story. Looks like there was a store in the front at one point, maybe apartments up above, but the interesting thing of it is right on the waterfront here in St. Albans Bay. And one can just come up with all kinds of story ideas from an old place like this. So right adjacent to that old warehouse building is this wharf and St. Albans Bay behind me. Across the way, that little strip of land that you see are the Champlain Islands, and across the lake beyond that is New York State. And okay, you can come up with all kinds of story ideas there, but you can also take this context and place it somewhere else. What if, for example, it's World War II. We're in Czechoslovakia. Across the river is Poland. And refugees will be coming through here in the dark in the middle of the night. There'll be a bonfire on the beach for them to navigate by. Now there's a story. How much data can you get onto a SIM chip? And how easy would it be to smuggle it anywhere else in the world? Now, if you can't get a story idea from something like this, you need a new hobby. So while you're out and about in the world, going to work, going to the store, going anywhere, you want to be observant of everything you see, absorb everything like a sponge. You want to have a backlog in the back of your mind, as well as notes and piles and post-it notes. So you've seen pictures of my studio already. You see how cluttered it is. Collect ideas, collect backstories, making them up, of course, as you go along. You are working in fiction after all. And so you pick up an item in an antique shop, and believe me, an antique shop is a treasure trove of stories. Pick up an item, you look at it, and you think, what kind of a story could be behind this? And you put it on your shelf, and sometime as you're going along writing one of those books and you need some sort of inspiration to go to the next step, there it is. Happens to me all the time. Be a collector of backstories, a collector of inspirations. They're out there, they're everywhere. Places where you can just imagine all kinds of things have happened in the past or could happen now. If you're writing present day, look at an old, well, like that old gas station, abandoned. It's had its heyday a long time ago. What your characters in this book could do there. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. If you're doing an historical fiction, and that's always kind of fun, because what you're going to do is a what-if scenario. You're going to take the real history, whatever the history books have recorded, and whatever you know as fact, which hopefully you will research, and then take it to the next stage. My book on the Civil War, the Confederate gold, we know what happened when it first left the city, but we don't know what became of it. So we start with the real truth, the real history, and then you build the fiction upon that. All this ammunition that you can accumulate to be able to build into that book, whatever it might be, historical fiction, a romance novel, any sort of novel that you write, you need as much material, real material, that you can accumulate to put into it to keep it real. So there's a bunch of ideas for you, and more how to look at the world and what to kind of keep in the back of your mind while you're out and about on your everyday life. And keep notes, keep a notepad around, or post-it notes or something like that. And I always carry around a camera, a small pocket digital camera, usually lives in my shirt pocket or in the dashboard of my car. If I see something I want to try to remember just the way it is, I'll whip out the camera, snap a couple of quick pictures, and they'll all get downloaded onto a CD and stored for future reference. Sometimes they might end up as pictures in the book, illustrations, you never know. There's no such thing as a bad idea, and you want to just keep a catalog of as much of that as you can. So in our next video, we're going to take a look at much the same sort of thing, except at people. You're going to need to learn how to develop characters, and believe me, I know, I've done 12 books and developed dozens of characters for them, but the place you've got to start before you start developing your characters is you have to find your characters. You have to create these people. And so I'm going to give you some hints and some ideas on where to locate various ideas and how to make them work. So that's in the next video. We'll talk about character development in another video later on. Until then, I'm Bob Pierce. Well, not exactly from the studio, but this is from the studio.